Know that we're approaching the holy day, the Day of Atonement. So that's kind of what I'm going to deal with today. But in addition to that, I also want to deal with how we know when when the holy days are. And it's going to be, it's not going to be very extensive, but it's just going to be good enough to understand. I know Elder Ricard has gone into it a couple of times on Sabbaths and different times extensively. But I'm just going to kind of brush over it, and then maybe after that we could go into it, answer any questions. So the question is, how do we know when the holy days are? Um, First, we must understand when the first day of the year is. The first day of the year is also the first day of the first month. Each holy day is appointed according to its number of month and its number of day. For example, let's go into Leviticus, so you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4. And if you brothers, online, if you have a book of Enoch and a book of Jubilees, uh, go ahead and grab that as well, because we'll go into those books as well.
Okay, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4. These are the feasts of the Most High, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. Verse 5. And the 14th day of the first month at eve is the Most High's Passover.
Okay, so we see in verse 5 it says, in the 14th day of the first month. So this is a perfect example of what I was stating earlier, how the holy days are appointed according to the month and the day. Now, when the Most High assigned the months, he didn't give them days. He gave them numbers. And so the first month is the first month beginning that begins the year. And in that month, we have the Passover, which is on the 14th day of that month. So the question now is, how do we properly observe the Passover or any holy day if we don't know when the first month of the year is? All right, let's jump into Enoch. Let's go to Enoch chapter 72. All right, again, this is Enoch 72, verse 32.
Enoch, chapter 72, verse 32. On that day, the night decrease and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And
so what it's saying so far is, first off, let me give a little context to where we're jumping off into. We're at the end of Enoch. He's speaking of what the Most High has showed him. The Most High showed him the secrets of time and how to measure and calculate a calendar, the true calendar, the calendar that is observed in the heavens that the Most High watches and keeps. Mm-hmm. And so the Most High was explaining to him that, the course of the sun. And the sun is basically the clock that tells you how long a month should last and how long, the next month will last. And it goes in cycles of 30, 30, and 31. So right now, the Most High is showing him he's gone from the beginning of the year, and each month he's telling him how the sun will the circuit of the sun. And right now we're getting at the end of the year, and he's explaining the end of the year and what to look for to know the end of the year. Okay, so go ahead and read that again.
Verse 32, Enoch chapter 72, verse 32. On that day, the night decrease and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts.
Okay, so it's saying that the day is 9 parts and the night is 9 parts. Now, this we all know that we keep time in hours, and a half of a day is 12 hours, the other half of a day is 12 hours. But even in that, our keeping of time is off according to the Most High. The Most High divides the day into 18 parts, whereas we divide it into 24. And what is being read here in Enoch is he's saying that the day is 9 parts and the night is 9 parts. So the day and the night are perfectly equal at this time that he's speaking of right now. And as we continue to read, we'll find out that this day, it happens at the end of the year. And this marks the last day of the year. So continue reading.
Okay. Let me start back over.
Go ahead.
On that day, the night decreased and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts, and the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly as to it is days 364.
Okay, so it's saying on this day when the night equals the day, when they have the same amount of parts, this is the end of the year. And the year equals 364 days. Now we know that that's different than what we keep in today's society. We have a 365-day year, and then we have leap years, and then we have daylight savings, and we have all this stuff added in to try to calculate for what the Most High had already set, instead of just doing it as He says. You know, the scripture says in Daniel that they would seek to change times and seasons. And in them doing that, they have to account for the day that they have added. They have to do these leap years, and they have to add all this other stuff to try to account for that day that they've added. Okay? So what we see here in Enoch is the last day of the year. The day will be in equal parts as to the night, and that will mark the last day of the year. All right. This year it fell on March 16th, which was a Saturday or the Sabbath. So the first day of the year this year was March 17th, which was a Sunday. All right, and the easiest way that to calculate this is the United States Naval Observatory. They calculate the sun to the exact nanosecond. So if you go to their website and you want to know the setting of the sun and how many hours the sun had risen for this day versus how many hours the sun had set for this day, you can go to their website, and they have the means and the measures to calculate that exactly. And in going to that website, it shows that on the 16th of March, that the day and the night were equal parts. So that marks the last day of the year. So what follows the last day of the year? The first day of the year. Okay. So now if we know March 16th was the last day of the year, then we know the next day, March 17th, is the first day of the year. Now, when I say, what I'm doing now is I'm equating the Most High's calendar to what we are familiar with. We're familiar with the Roman calendar, which has January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and so forth. But it's not lined up with the Most High's calendar, because they in the times that we live, they say the year begins in January, but it's not true. Okay, the year begins in spring with life. The year opens up with life. And it ends in the dying in winter. That's the end of the year. And then when it comes back around, life comes out of the ground again, and that's the beginning of the year. All right. So that gives us back to my initial point. We're trying to figure out how we know when to keep the holy days. And I mentioned the fact that the holy days have been assigned according to the day of the month that they occur in. So it's important that we know the first day of the first month, which is the beginning of the year. And this is how we calculate that, by knowing the last day of the year is divided perfectly in day and night. All right, does that make sense? All right, now let's jump into Jubilees. Well, one point I want to make is every year, the last day of the year falls on the Sabbath. As it did this year, it will do next year. And then the first day of the year falls on the first day of the week. Now, how is this able to happen, because in the calendar that we live in as of today, it doesn't fall like that. Like your birthday or the first day of the year may be Monday this year, but next year it'll be Tuesday, and it'll continue to move like that. But under the Most High's calendar, the year is divided perfectly, and we'll get into that. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but actually, that's what I'm gonna break down for you now. Is how it is that every year the year ends on a Sabbath, and the year begins on the first day of the week, which we know as Sunday. So let's go to Jubilees chapter 6, verse 30.
Jubilees chapter 6, verse 30. And all the days which will be command will be 52 weeks of days, and all of them are a complete year.
Okay, so it's saying that all the days within a year will be 52 weeks of days.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means by that is, exactly what it's saying. 52 weeks of days literally means 52 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have the year is perfectly sectioned off into sevens, which is a week. So according to the Most High's calendar, there's 52 weeks within a year. Okay, so the last day of the year and the first day of the year from the beginning of time has been on the Sabbath and the first day of the week. So as this year started on March 17th, which was a Sunday, well, the week following that will still be Sunday, right? Well, you do that 52 times, and you've made it to the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
364 days it perfectly divides by sevens, 52 times. So 7 times 52 is 364. And so that also allows our holy days to continually to be. Most of the holy days fall on a Sabbath because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, with that in mind, let's go back to Leviticus, which we just read. Chapter 23.
Verse 6.
Just jump in verse 5.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at eve is the Most High's Passover.